Good morning and welcome to the MAC weather page for this Wednesday, May 11th. And you can see temperatures out there this morning pretty consistent, the upper 40s to low 50s, lots of clouds, drizzle, a couple of sprinkles around, but for the most part, we're not going to see much in the way of precipitation. Most of the time it'll be dry, but can't rule out, especially this morning, a few scattered showers and about, and perhaps even a widely scattered thunderstorm this afternoon as we heat up the atmosphere. We'll see temperatures climb in the upper 60s to low 70s, making for a pretty nice day. Notice the blue line here. We talked about yesterday how the precipitation would be most likely and more significant across southwest lower Michigan and lesser as you headed to the northeast. We got high pressure off to the northeast, actually farther north than this, but just for depiction purposes, you can see this high pressure system is bringing lower dew points into the area, and that's causing the areas basically northeast of this line to see very little in the way of precipitation over the last 24 hours. You can see only about 0.04 of an inch here at Breckenridge, but in Gratiot County, and then as you take the southwest part of Gratiot County at Middleton, over 1/3 of an inch of rain there. So pretty big difference once you get either side of this line, around 1/3 of an inch at Newaygo, 0.6 at Lansing, and around 1/4 of an inch down southeast lower Michigan, with little to no precipitation once you get northeast of that line. And again, we expect that will continue to be somewhat the case today. Best chance for some sprinkles and maybe some drizzle. Fog will be across far southwest lower Michigan. If we look at the next shot, you can see why that's the case here on our vapor imagery satellite. You can see across Ontario here, we got dew points in around 30 degrees, where in Michigan they're in the 40s, and in between that area, it keeps trying to feed that drier air from the northeastern portions of the region into the Great Lakes, and again creating that cutoff line. Also notice the big MCS complex of storms across parts of Nebraska and Kansas into Missouri, and then Kentucky and Tennessee. Again, some pretty strong thunderstorms there with a number of watches out and severe thunderstorm warnings as well. If we look at the next shot, you can see across the region, again, pretty consistent temperatures across much of lower Michigan in the upper 40s to low 50s, a little much cooler off to the northeast. But again, we'll see that warmer air begin to move into the area late this afternoon. Again, I think most temperatures are climbing the upper 60s to low 70s, making for a very comfortable day. And then we'll have a system come through tonight and tomorrow that could bring some more in the way of showers and thunderstorms. If we look at the normal highs, the normal high is 67, the normal low is 42. And if we look at some of the soil conditions around the area, again, not a lot of precipitation since midnight, as most of the heavier precipitation that will continue to move off to the south and east. And you can see soil conditions at the surface are pretty wet with lots of dew across the areas where no rain has fallen. And you can see, again, soil temperatures mainly around 50 degrees. Hopefully we'll warm that up quite a bit over the next couple of days, but we got a cold weekend coming up. So again, we'll kind of hold status quo, it looks like. And you can see not a whole lot in the way of growing degree days yet, but we should begin to take off. And towards the end of the month, it looks like we could get very warm to hot. I think we could see temperatures around the 22nd, 24th. From there to the end of the month, I suspect we'll see a lot of temperatures in the 80s, maybe even a couple of 90-degree temperatures coming up here over the next couple of weeks as we see our pattern finally begin to really switch around the 20th, 22nd, 24th in that area there. If we look at the weather map for this morning, you can see we've got a couple areas of low pressure that's going to move towards the Great Lakes and give us some more weather. This system here off into the Dakotas will move off to the east northeast, and that'll eventually help drag a cold front through the area once we get into the day on later on Thursday. And you can see low pressure system across Oklahoma and Kansas is going to move right into central Michigan, and it's going to try to take this warm front to the north, but it's never going to really quite make it into the area. So we'll have mainly showers. There'll be some thunder showers, but I think the best chance if we're going to see any strong storms is going to be across the eastern part of the state later tomorrow. And if we look at the forecast map for tomorrow, that low pressure system from Oklahoma will move up over towards southern lower Michigan, and it's going to head right across the state. And again, I think the best chances are going to be closer to the warm front and along the eastern side of the state, where the daytime heating will have a better chance to create a little more in the way of instability, where clouds and showers and thunder showers will probably lessen the threat across western lower Michigan. And then finally, as we get in, this should be Friday, but finally as we get into Friday, you can see the cold front will move off to our east, and we got a real strong cold front that's going to bring a lot of cold air behind it, even showing some mixed precipitation across the arrowhead of Minnesota. And out ahead and behind this front, it's going to be very windy across the area. So temperatures, I think Friday may start out in the 60s. I think they'll fall by late in the day, and we could see winds over 30 miles an hour for quite a bit of the afternoon hour. So it's going to be a pretty blustery day on Friday, followed by a very cool weekend. And we're going to be talking about the potential for some frost as we get into Sunday and Monday morning. So we're going to have to watch that very closely. If we look at the severe weather outlook for the day tomorrow, this should actually be day 2, which would be tomorrow. And you can see the marginal risk still up in the lower Michigan, although I think the best chance is going to be around Saginaw to Jackson and off to the south and east of that line. If we look at the hazardous weather threats, still the same thing. Cold conditions across much of the upper Midwest, Great Lakes, and the Ohio Valley here coming up over the next, really into to the earlier middle part of next week. We'll warm up a bit into early next week into the 60s with lows in the upper 30s to 40s versus maybe some low to mid 30s like we might see on Sunday and Monday. If we look at the next shot, this is a GFS low temperature map for Sunday morning. And you can see this would create an awful lot of frost across the area. And it does have support from the European model. So again, as we get into Sunday, I think Sunday looks like the coldest day, but either Sunday or Monday, we're going to have to watch for the potential of frost or freeze conditions across the Great Lakes. And you can see as far as precipitation, the heaviest is going to be from northeast Texas into the Ohio Valley and to the mid-Atlantic states, although still a pretty decent amount of precipitation across much of the Great Lakes, especially across the southern third of the lower peninsula, where again we could see about a ½ inch to maybe over an inch here over the next 7 days, and this should be 7 days. So not a very good job on some of my graphic titles this morning. If we look at the 8 to 14 day outlook, finally we begin to see some ridging develop across the area. Of course, we've seen these maps before not quite pan out, but I think with support from the European, we do think as we get in towards next weekend, I think we really have a chance to really flip this pattern. But we're going to have a chilly weekend until then. And if we look at the next slide, you can see over the next 90 days, again, this is the pattern we expect to develop. Precipitation plentiful across the southern states and beginning to dry out across much of the Great Lakes area. And again, this area here of above precipitation is certainly going to be a concern as we head towards the fall and the early winter out west when the fire season begins. As this La Nina begins to establish itself, this area from the Four Corners over towards the west coast is going to become very hot and very dry, and that could spell quite, with all the precipitation we're getting now, it's going to create a lot of vegetation, which will become fuel for the fires as we get into fall. So watch this area here as we get towards fall and the great fire potential that it may help create. Thanks for stopping by and have a great day, and 73s to all.